Well, we've actually got draft picks to talk about this evening. Welcome to another episode of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Matt Bove, joined by Sal Capaccio. So yesterday it was all about I guess it was actually earlier to, or no, it was yesterday because we're recording this once again past midnight. So on day one of the draft, it was about how the Bills traded back, not once, but twice, one of those including the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people were freaking out, understandably so. And then on day two of the draft, they used all three of their picks where they were slotted. Pick 33, pick 60, and pick 95. So as we now conclude day two, what's your biggest takeaway?
Well, my biggest takeaway is, first of all, we are 2 hours earlier than last night.
Huge.
I took a picture on the way out last night. It was 2:16 in the morning,
Huge.
12:26 as we talk right now. My biggest takeaway is they filled some needs. And in the process, we're always going to believe they stuck with their board, right? That's what they tell you. And I don't think that they're going to dip down too far on their board. I doubt it's always the exact, situation where it's the highest guy matches the need. There's probably guys higher ranked on their board than Keon Coleman, but he's right there. They need a wide receiver. He's ranked highly. They take him. And on that one, I really trust that they did that because they had all day to think about it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they could have done a lot of different things there. They go with Keon Coleman. We can talk about him a little bit. I'm very interested in the Cole Bishop pick, and I can tell you why in a minute. But if you want to just focus on Coleman, I mean, I thought what was interesting afterwards was Brandon Beane said, we are going to rely on him right away. To play the X receiver. We have a need right there. And no doubt about it. This guy's coming in. He's got to play football right now, and he's got to produce for the Bills.
I think that was pretty notable. So as we were recording this, it is about 12:30 in the morning. We finished hearing from Brandon Beane about a half an hour ago, and he did not shy away from that. And I think that that's something in itself that he did not hide, that we think Keon Coleman can make an immediate impact on this team for what he called it, vacant X job. He said that was a role that needed to be filled, and they think Keon Coleman can do that. He also has asked a lot of questions about, hey, this is not the kind of guy you have had for the last several years. It's been a while since they've had a player like this. So how do you think the Bills can utilize him? And do you think his skill set could succeed in what the Bills are able to do?
I think they could use him more down the field than people realize, but that's not going to be his main role, right? He's not going to be running, go routes all the time. But I do think he can stretch the field a little bit more than people think because he's a big body, and you still have to be aware of him at all parts of the field because of his catch radius and the fact that he can go over the middle. He can do a lot of different things. He's going to play the X role. So the biggest criticism of his, obviously, is the speed. Ran a 4.61 40-yard dash. How about the cool comment, a little insight here that just goes to show that we don't have all the information. Brandon Beane says, yeah, but you know what? We have access to his GPS timing. When he's at practice or especially when he's on games and, those monitors they wear. He said he ran closer to a 4.5. And at his pro day, he was a 4.5, not a 4.61.
Yeah.
So I think that they are very comfortable with his speed. Would you love him to be a 4.4? Connor actually reminded me of the year Gabe Davis.
They wanted him to run slow.
That's right. And he did. And I'm not saying they wanted him to, but I think it helped. It helped for him to fall. If he runs low 4.5s, he goes in the first round.
Yeah.
But because he doesn't, he lasts till day two, and the Bills get him right there. And I think they're comfortable. But anyway, I think that's interesting that the biggest criticism is the speed, but they seem very comfortable with his speed.
Yeah, and if he runs in the 4.4s, then he's probably like a top 15 pick. So we're not even having – and, of course, there's a very noticeable difference there. But it's not even just the 40. It's also the gauntlet speed. That's the drill that they also do at the Combine. And he had in his group the fastest speed of any of his peers. So – yeah, sure. He is not going to separate like some of the other players that would have been available to them. But I think they just love the intangibles. I think they also love the guy. And this even goes back to when we were at the Combine and all of the different like interviews that we do with people. I specifically remember the conversation we had with Emery Hunt from Football Game Plan. And he was just like, dog. Keon Coleman is a dog, and he is just such a tough guy to play against. He makes DBs' lives miserable. And then as the process moved on, so the Combine's in late February. So for the last 2 months, we've had these different conversations about Keon Coleman, and he is so polarizing. I think we had the conversation with Faraz Siddiqui from Upper Hand Fantasy, and he was like, yeah, I don't love the guy. That's what it is with Coleman. There is a big upside here. There's risk, there's reward. I think this is a move where they're banking on the upside, they're banking on their intel, and they're also banking on the fact that Keon Coleman now gets to play with what I believe is probably the second best quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, by the way, I'm glad that you can remember all those conversations. I can't remember basically what happened in this media room about 2 hours ago. That's why we got our coffee here at 12:30 in the morning. I want to go. So you just covered a lot of stuff, and it's really great. I want to go to the person, though, Keon Coleman. He's 20 years old. This guy he's going to come to Buffalo tomorrow, and he can't go out for a drink to celebrate legally, to drink alcohol. He's not 21 until May 17th, which is wild.
Keon Coleman is the new Tremaine Edmonds.
Yes.
It's like, but he's only 20 years old. Wasn't Tremaine Edmonds 19
when they drafted him? He's a year younger than what Keon Coleman is now because Tremaine turned 20 that offseason. He's going to turn 21. That's super young, though. But this is a guy I think that they feel they can now play him right away. And they just think about it this way, Matt. They got what they believe, I think, is their, whether he's won this year, you want to call him a one, that's fine. He is their future number one with Josh Allen in his prime years. That's what this is.
That's where I don't know if I agree.
Okay.
I think there's certainly, I mean, he's the number one pick in the second round. But if they are banking on this guy being their number one, which right now it seems like they are, I'm still concerned about the wide receiver room. Like, I don't think this is enough. And then adding another guy on day 3 or a couple guys on day 3 checks everything that I don't feel comfortable going into the season with Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Matt Collins, and then some like 4th or 5th round wide receiver. I think if Keon Coleman is your biggest move, then you at least still absolutely have to go out and sign a veteran wide receiver, like another guy who is at least serviceable. I don't know if you need to go do a massive swing for the fences. I don't know if you need a Brandon Ayuk, a T. Higgins, a Deebo Samuel, some of the names that were floated around on Friday. But if you're going into the season counting on this guy to be your number one, that is concerning to me.
No, that's right. And I'm not going to backtrack on me even saying that same thing. I'm meaning more for the next 3 years after this, even in his 4-year rookie contract. I think he eventually projects to their number one. But you're right. I've been saying, and I'm not going to go off it now, you can't, for a rookie to come in here and be the number one receiver, that's concerning. And I don't know if he's able to do it. They may be counting on him to do that. We'll see how it goes. But he's certainly, and you talk about a dog, it was interesting. He even said, like, basically when he was asked, great question by Jenna Cottrell, our colleague, said, how do you respond to people who talk about your lack of speed? He's like, I've never been caught from behind. Guys don't sit on me when I'm in the open field running. And he said, anybody who says that, they're not the ones on the field with me.
Give this, first off, I want to also say this. You're going to see draft grades from a lot of people. And I think there's a ton of validity to it because there's so much research that goes into all of this. We will not know for a long time. Do you like the pick? Do you really like the pick? Are you not crazy about the pick? Where do you stand? Because this is going to be the most important pick that they make in the 2024 draft class.
Yeah, for sure. And does it turn out to be the best pick? We don't know. Time will tell. But certainly where they were to trade back to be the number one pick in the second round and to get this need after what they did at the wide receiver group. Look, as we transition to Cole Bishop, we're going to talk about the 3 biggest areas. Actually, I think they've overhauled the most this offseason: wide receiver, safety, and defensive tackle. And that is the 3 positions they took. So you're right. At that position, consider you have Josh Allen. It is a very important spot, and he's going to play right away for it. So second round, they also get Cole Bishop. They take him with pick number 60 overall. So this is a young man who played safety at Utah, 6'2", 206 pounds. I took a little flack on Twitter, and I get why, because I didn't explain it correctly. When I said I see him initially in like replacing his Saran Neal role, I didn't mean that he's just going to play special teams. That's what Saran Neal was. What I meant was I think it's going to be hard for him to step in right away and be a starter. But in the meantime, he's actually got position flexibility and versatility where he can play while he does that. He can do on-the-job training, essentially, and he can play special teams while he's doing that. That's what I mean. Saran Neal wasn't a serviceable defensive back. They put him out there once in a while. This guy will be. I still think it's going to be tough for him to start right away. I wouldn't discount it, but I think if you're expecting him to do that, that's a little bit unfair to him and the team.
I actually don't know if I agree. And my reasoning is, as far as positional value is concerned, safety is not, for the Bills, it is important. For a lot of the league, there's not the same importance as there is with other positions. There's a reason why Cole Bishop was the consensus, top 3, right? There's a couple safeties that are probably all in like their own little tier, and he was available for them in the second round. So for me, this is a pretty big asset to go get a guy. I mean, we just watched Osiris Torrance play every snap as an offensive lineman. And I know, but I'm not sold on Taylor Rapp or Mike Edwards being significantly better than this guy.
Here's the difference. If Osiris Torrance doesn't start, he doesn't play. This guy doesn't have to start to play.
Yeah.
He can still play without being a starter. And I think that's perfectly fine. I agree with you. He could challenge Taylor Rapp for a spot. I don't know about Mike Edwards. I think Mike Edwards is kind of entrenched, right? Have to be Taylor. But if you're talking about a guard last year, it's Osiris Torrance, which amazingly he played every snap. But if he doesn't win that job, he doesn't play except due to injury. This guy's going to play even if he doesn't start. He's going to be on the field. He will be on the field. What I'm saying is I just think it's too much to expect him to say, I'm going to walk in, start for Taylor Rapp right away. And then look, if he does, that's great. I mean, then they made a great pick.
Yeah.
He is a second round safety and he was still there. Look, it's hard for any team to do that. If Cooper DeJean was drafted, I'd say the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. The one thing I will say, to your point, which I do agree with part of it, like the Saran Neal role, hey, you're going against a good tight end.
Yes,
Cole Bishop,
exactly right.
Cole Bishop is on the field.
That's
He's
right.
going to be covering that guy. And that was even something that Brandon Beane said they talked about when they were in the process, because he spent a lot of time in practice going against Dalton Kincaid. And Cole Bishop told the front office, hey, I got him a lot. So then they reached out to Dalton Kincaid when they're like, hey, is he blowing smoke? Is he trying to like pump his tires? And Dalton was like, no, like he actually probably got me more than I got him. So I think there's a lot of talent here. I can just tell you from his reaction, from the body language, from the way he was talking about him, I think this is a player that they were very, very excited to get.
Yeah, and listen, I will even say after listening to Brandon Beane, I'll give him even more opportunity than I initially did to be a starter, simply based on what Brandon Beane is. When I asked him how tough is it to come in and start at that position, he said, look, middle linebacker and safety, very tough. Always, we expect a lot of those guys. He said, but this guy, consensus in our room, consensus in our front office, everybody just really raved about his high IQ, his leadership abilities. Those are the things you look at. So in that respect, I mean, he kind of seems like, and he feels like in day number 2.
We got another cracked open beverage from John Worrell.
Yeah, I know.
His
right?
day is done.
It's going to be a tradition. You're going to wait for tomorrow to do that too. In that sense, it's like a Terrell Bernard, and it was his second year, not his rookie, but you see that those traits now after a year of seeing him, you see why they loved him for that role in the middle linebacker role. This guy kind of has the same feel, and, you know, talking to him, and you see that too, it kind of comes out. These guys all have that, right? We talk about Cole Bishop, Keon Coleman, and the guy we can talk about next, Dwayne Carter. Don't they all have that dog leadership mentality after talking with them?
Yeah, they absolutely do. There's very clearly like a prototype that this team likes. And after a while, you get it. And it's the guys like the 3 people that they took on day 2 of the draft. It's the guys like Josh Allen. It's the guys like Terrell Bernard, like Harrison Phillips, like all of these guys over the years that they've had where it's like, oh my gosh, that's a Bill. Going into this process, all of these guys, especially Cole Bishop, I didn't know as much about Dwayne Carter. Cole Bishop was a guy that a lot of people connected to the Bills because obviously safety was a position that we all knew that needed to be addressed in some capacity. They're all Billsy guys.
Yes.
They're all guys that
They
Sean.
like to say Bill's DNA.
Yeah.
Bill's DNA.
Culture. They're culture guys. So, yeah.
Well, okay, can we touch about this for a second?
Yeah.
Don't you find it interesting, all the talk about Josh Allen's leadership and this year a little bit more and how he's doing? It seems like it's a little different, going about it a little bit different. He's going to take the wide receivers. You know, he's going to get together and throw with them. I could tell you this week, I was told Josh Allen was with the receivers and tight ends on some retreat somewhere. I know that because there was an event that Dalton Kincaid was supposed to be at, and they didn't have that, and that's why. And Josh Allen's out there with them, and they're doing that. And then Josh even talked about kind of developing a little bit different of a leadership skill and more an understanding. I wonder how much Stephon Diggs even plays a role in this, which is Stephon Diggs was such an alpha male. He was such a guy that dominated his presence. It's time for Josh Allen to be that guy. I think sometimes Josh Allen's too nice. I really do.
Yeah.
And sometimes your quarterback has to not be too nice. And what I mean is, it feels like Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Saran Neal. Give me another guy. Who else did they get rid of? Gabe Davis and Tre'Davious White.
Yep.
How much leadership has walked out the door? They're taking these guys. These are leaders they're talking about. There you go. These are leaders, not just football players. I think there's a concerted effort here. Back to your point of Bill's DNA.
I think that the Josh Allen point is not because of when people initially hear that, they're going to think it's correlated to Stephon Diggs. I think it's correlated to all of the leaders that have left the building, all of the captains that have left the building. There's like none left really, right? It's besides Josh, who's coming back, who's a captain. I don't even know.
I think Reed Ferguson.
I don't even think if he was a captain last year.
He might have been.
I don't know.
Ferguson a captain?
Vaughn. Well, Tyler Matakevich isn't on the team, right?
On the team now, but Tyler Matakevich could. But yeah,
Yeah.
right. But that's
Josh and Von Miller. Okay.
They lost a lot.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Oh, we love you. It's a gallery.
Yeah, this is weird though. I don't like when everybody's kind of staring and watching at us, but whatever. So I yeah, exactly. I get it.
Who's the most likely to swear and get us in trouble here on the podcast? Heather has her hand up over there right away. She's probably. I agree with that.
What do we think about Dwayne Carter?
Another guy that, like, you know, John Worrell made an excellent point. We're on the Zoom call, and Dwayne Carter I was on with him. Was the first question. It was really loud. He said, "Hold on a second." He muted his mic. He got up. He was gone for about 30 seconds. And he basically told his family to be quiet. Came back and he said, "Yeah, my family said if I ever say anything to say it, I had to tell them to basically be quiet." And his family, and I'm like, dude, your family's, they're excited for you and everything, but that's the kind of guy he is where, hey, I'm gonna take charge of the situation. And, that's the guy off the field. On the field, rotational piece, but a plug and play rotational piece, because that's what all interior defensive linemen are for the Bills.
Yeah, when they make this pick and then you start to read up more on it and you start to do a little bit more research on it, I think that the idea of him lining up rotationally next to Ed Oliver could be a pretty scary combination for them, because even though he is a rotational piece, I think he is somebody that can provide interior pressure and open up some things for the other guys that are on the team. All the intangibles, they check every box. It's like, okay, yeah, he was a captain for 3 years. There's a discrepancy. Is it 3 or 4 years as a captain? Because the paper says it's 4 consecutive seasons, but now Jay is holding up 3 here. So
it was 4, man, he walks in.
That's what but he was there for 5. So it's like, well, maybe there was that wiggle. So regardless, he checks the boxes, but I also think that he could be, because there's just not much there, right?
Yeah.
But defensive tackle for the Bills right now, Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, Austin Johnson, Eli Anku.
Dwayne. Deshaun Hand, or not Deshaun Williams. Sorry, Hand. Deshaun Hand played a long time ago. Just pulling up the roster right now so I make sure. Ilianku is the other one, but yeah, you're right. Listen, they said he can play inside, he can play outside. Obviously, that's big for the Buffalo Bills. They like their position flexibility, their versatility. Deshaun Williams is the name we're looking for right there. Austin Johnson, Daquan Jones. This is simply a pick about numbers and about need, right? I mean, they need it. They could use the numbers there. How about the football bloodlines too? His dad played for Ohio State in the early 90s, and his grandfather played college football for Notre Dame and Youngstown State. So this is a guy who comes from a football background. He's been around the game. He grew up around the game. He knows how to act around the game. And I think that mattered to the Buffalo Bills as well.
It also sounds like he knows how to act not around the game, because he had a minor in theater. So that's going to be very interesting. We can ask him when he comes into town if he has a favorite musical. I think that.
Did you read Bishop on Keon Coleman on his musical talent?
No, what is it?
I believe it said he plays the guitar.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Hobbies include golf and playing the guitar.
There's nobody in this room who golfs. We never talk about it, and it doesn't fire anybody up either when we talk about it. So he can kind of come and join us out here. I want to say this. This is kind of my closing thought as we wrap up our little, emergency day 2 draft recap, whatever we're calling this. I think the patience for the Bills paid off. I think that yesterday there were people, because they traded with the Chiefs, who were giving them a hard time. And that is a separate point. I understand the idea of not wanting to help the team that has beaten you 3 of the last 4 years to end your season. I completely get it. But from a Bills standpoint, if you are trusting your board and if you have these positions that you feel like you need to address, they got 3 impact players today, and now also have probably the ammunition to get at least a couple more on day 3. By the time some of you listen to this or watch this, we might know how day 3 plays out. I do not foresee the Bills drafting 7 players on day 3.
Yeah, let's take a look at it right here. I have it. So tomorrow, day 3, they have Saturday, round 5, 5, 5, 5. There's 4 picks, and those are not, you got 141, 144, 160, 163, round 6, and round 7. Okay, out of those 6 picks, how many did they actually select?
Well, they have 7 picks. You skipped round 4.
I did. I don't know why, but you're right. I was just looking and focused on the 4 round 5. Out of all those,
5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks. You say they take 5?
I think they take 5. I think they end up taking 2 in round 4, 2 in round 5, and then 6 and 7.
Okay. I think 5.5 would be the over under. I'll go with 6. I think they go with an extra guy there, and they try. They've been making a concerted effort to kind of get younger around the roster a little bit, but we'll see where it goes. I think tomorrow is an interesting day for them to still address a few of these things we talked about. Surprise here, like a guy like Troy Franklin is still out there.
Yeah. This is like the perfect point. Every year there's a player like this. There are people who thought Troy Franklin made sense to the Bills at 28.
Yep.
And now he is sitting there available with the 101st pick when day 3 of the draft starts. That does not mean that Troy Franklin might never be a good player in this league. He very well could be. Maybe there's just something that these teams do not like with his profile, and they're like, we think the drops are a bigger deal than maybe some people on the outside are giving it credit for. But Troy Franklin clearly produced. So I do think that there are going to be players not necessarily like that, but players who are still available in the 4th round, in the 5th round, that they could try and kind of, combine their picks, get a few of them, and then have other impact guys. Even though they've been a pretty sporadic, inconsistent team as far as hitting their draft picks, they have a couple, I don't want to say diamonds in the rough, but they've found a couple good guys on this day 3 over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think this is kind of where Brandon Beane actually does his best work. Actually, sometimes you're talking about a Gabe Davis, a Taron Johnson, guys like that. Even before he got here, Matt Milano in the 5th round when Sean ran the draft in 2017, or at least Doug Whaley and his staff were still here. So yeah, this is going to be a really interesting and still important group, because this is a team that still needs some more bodies and some more depth at some positions. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll be here all day tomorrow, and then we'll hear from Brandon Beane at the end of the day, and we'll do this one more time.
What do you think in closing? Tomorrow, they draft another receiver, probably, right? Probably draft an interior offensive lineman, maybe a corner. I mean, a corner. They can kind of do anything.
That's the one I want to touch on. I was adamant and just telling people how ridiculous it was to suggest corner could be in play at 28. Like, come on, give me a break. They're not taking a corner. They don't need one. Now's the time. Now you can take a corner. You need corners, but it's depth pieces. You don't need a starter at corner. You need a guy now in the 4th or 5th round, because you always need corners. I like Jamarcus Ingram a lot for a depth piece. We don't know what Kyrie Elam's going to be, but those are guys coming off the bench, just like guys who are going to come in here 5th and 6th round to compete. You still have a guy in the wide receiver depth chart, Justin Shorter, who you took on day 3 last year, who had a redshirt year. What's he going to be? We don't know. KJ Hamler's been signed. So I think you still have to address that spot. Here's the other position, running back. Yeah. They probably are going to take a running back at some point in this draft, right?
Yeah, they probably will. That does make a lot of sense. Yeah. I just think we can't ever do a podcast without Justin Shorter's name being mentioned in some capacity. And that threw me off, because I was like, oh, finally, we're going to have a quick episode without Justin Shorter's name being mentioned. But yeah, I think running back's a spot. I think that they're going to draft another receiver. But even though they get Keon Coleman and they probably draft another receiver on day 3, to me, that's still not good enough. That's more of a big picture. Let's talk about this once we know the entire draft class. But I don't think there's anybody that they could get on day 3 where I would feel like, okay, they're set now at wide receiver. I still do think, though, I mean, like Troy Franklin, I believe, had a combine visit. He had a private workout. He had a 30 visit here. Like, he is somebody they put work into. I mean, they passed up on him 3 times, right? So, like, maybe there's just not the interest there. It's just really fascinating. That's what I mean. Everybody else has too. So it's just really interesting that there's a player like that who is still available. I think Bills fans would feel amazing about this class if they could end up getting a guy like that, just because it's a name. I mean, admittedly, we do 10 prospect profiles leading up to the draft. He was one of the 10. We don't normally do them on guys who are picked on day 3. Javon Baker is also available, right?
God. Javon Baker. I'd rather have him than Troy Franklin, I think. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of guys out there they could have. So, all right, let's go home. Let's wrap this thing up and, get everybody to where they need to be tomorrow and come back and do this again.
This is an episode of It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Wherever you get your podcasts, do the whole like, comment, subscribe thing. We will talk to you guys once they are finished with the draft. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.
Thanks a lot to our producer, as always, Mike Robier.
He always gets that in. You're the better guy. You just remember. I forget. See you guys.